What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Zach and Pat Show. I'm Zach.
I'm Pat.
This is the show about manhood, fatherhood, entrepreneurship, and the mentality it takes to be successful at those things. And we'll probably sprinkle in some helpful real estate advice too, because that's what Pat and I do. You know, guys, life can be tough. We can go through some things and struggle at times, but this is the show to let you know that you're not alone. So if you're someone out there going through any of these things, this is the show for you. Shout out to our friends at NeuroGum for keeping us energized and focused. NeuroGum is a chewing gum, as well as they have some mints. Got caffeine, L-theanine, and vitamins B6 and 12. Helps with memory and focus. I like to chew it really all the time. Whenever I'm driving around showing houses, making phone calls to my clients, before a big meeting. Anytime I just feel like I need a little bit of a mental boost, I'll pop a piece of NeuroGum, and it usually gets me to where I need to be. So get out there and try some NeuroGum.
And shout out to our people over at Captain Beard Co. They make amazing beard products. So they got beard butter, oils, and balms. They also have shampoo, conditioner, and body wash, and they've started making these amazing smelling candles. All stuff made with all natural ingredients, local here in St. Louis. So give them a shot, and when you go to checkout, use promo code Zach and Pat for 10% off your purchase.
Yeah, I just ordered a bunch of Captain stuff for a bunch of the men in my family for Christmas.
There you go.
Yeah, I just got everybody some
good
body wash and some beard oil and some all the good stuff. So, and also shout out to our friends at Hand Wraps Rolling Papers. They are a local rolling paper company here in town. They've got rice and hemp rolling papers. They're in 16 local dispensaries here in town. So if cannabis is something that's legal in your state, like it is here in Missouri, check them out. Like I said, they're in a couple dispensaries here in town. So if you see them, don't hesitate to pick some up. And now to introduce our awesome guest today. He is a father. He is the owner and creative director of Punchline Productions, the great and powerful Corey Schonhorst.
Welcome. Thank you guys for having me. The great and powerful is a lot to live up to, and it makes me feel like I should be behind a curtain.
Yeah. A lot of people say that, I guess it's the Wizard of Oz. I always do it as just like an homage to Rogan, just because I'm like a big Joe Rogan fan, and he always says that. So, but yeah, Corey, thank you so much for coming on, man. We kind of had a last minute cancellation, and you filled in, you swooped in and saved the day for us. So appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah. Well, for the people that are out there that don't know you, can you give us just a little brief summary of who you are?
Yeah. 1983, November 22nd, Belleville, Illinois. It was a cold, dark night. I'm from St. Louis. Originally, I moved around a lot. As a kid, lived in Branson, Missouri for some time, or just outside of it. Lived in Tennessee for a little while during middle school and parts of high school. The age-old question, I went to Hazelwood East for a brief time and then finished out at Parkway North, where I went to high school. And then University of Tampa for a little bit, Lindenwood, and then started my own business. So never actually finished college. I guess if anything, it goes to show you that you don't need a degree.
Oh, for sure.
To be mediocre.
Yeah. I've got one. And I've got a degree, and I've yet to use it. So
I've got mine, and thankfully, it's somewhat has to do with what I do. So
yeah, a lot of people don't use it.
Yeah.
And then after that time period, I had my first son early on. I've got two sons, 20, Blair, and he is a CBC grad and plays Ball State football right now.
Cool.
So he's a bad mamma jamma, and he is the James Brown of our family. He's the hardest working man in the family thus far. See what the little guy does. And then Tyson, my youngest son, is 9. So he's in 4th grade and goes to Kirkwood School District.
Cool.
I've met him. Well, I met your oldest one last night, and then I've met Tyson a few times. He's a little spitfire.
He is a wrecking ball with a heart of gold.
Yeah. So you said you started your own business. What kind of business?
Yeah. The original one. Should we backtrack?
Yeah, let's backtrack.
So
full story.
The reason that I'm in a similar industry to you guys, almost the exact one now, is because my first big boy job, I'd call it, was selling advertising. So I used to sell advertising for what at the time was called Grand Slam Sports. It was St. Louis Sports Magazine and KFNS Radio. And during that time period, I kind of figured out that was even a thing. I didn't know what marketing was, but I've always looked at commercials the same way the cable guy looks at television. It's just everything was commercialized for me. And it was prevalent in my childhood, and it was a big part of just who I was. So when I had the chance to go sell it, it was really exciting, and I got to do innovative things because I didn't know the industry. I was thinking outside the box. but just by pure dumb luck. It wasn't that I came in as some like savant. It was just like, oh, why don't we do this way? And they're like, that's not how we do things. Try it, you know? And so I found some success there.
Like doing what, for instance?
So I would say like my first sale, I have two good relevant stories, I would say, about that. And my first one was I wanted to go after big dogs when I first came into the industry. I'm like, why aren't we calling like Reebok and Gatorade and Under Armour for this magazine? They're like, go for it, kid. You know, like,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay. And Reebok called me back, and the dude really politely explained to me, because he was like, what are you looking to do here? And I was like, well, I want to get your ad in the magazine. He's like, well, what's your magazine? I told him. He's like, well, it's a syndication. He's like, it's a free magazine that you pick up. And he was like, okay. And he's like, so you're looking for us to sponsor your magazine? I go, no. Looking for you to buy an ad. And he politely explained to me that Reebok does more for your magazine than your magazine does for Reebok. He goes, so what you're asking for is a sponsorship, just so you know. I go, okay. And he goes, so how much is it to sponsor a full page ad? And I was like $1,500 or whatever it was. He was like, all right, I'll do 4 months, tenacity kind of. And I was like, cool, rock on.
Sweet.
And then, you know, dabs all around the office for
Getting Reebok.
the idiot new kid who's like, oh. And then the secondary, and where I really found my niche, and this is how I ended up going into my own business, was I wanted to land some cool, like, I always thought of like the Mad Men days of advertising as like the premier. That's why I wanted to get into advertising, not to be a chauvinist or to do nylon ads, but just because of like sitting people down in a room and like solving a problem. Like, how do we deliver this message to the public? And so Bentley of St. Louis is down in the Valley. And I was like, I want to go after them because I would love to just test drive a car, just sit in one, you know, like 23 years old or whatever I was. I was like, I just want to sit in a Lambo. And so I went down there, and they were like, sure, like, what's your pitch? And I was like, ooh, a pitch? I don't know. So I went back, and I put a suit on, and I took a photo holding the hockey stick, and I did different positions, like, you know, like one of me standing, one of me squatting. And then I had I was driving a Chevy Malibu at the time. And so I took the car and I mirrored it twice, and then had ice on the bottom. And it was 3 of me in front of a Malibu. And it said Bentley St. Louis, smooth as ice. And then I went back and I showed them that. And I was like, but this is your cars and 3 blues players. And they were like, love that idea. And I was like how I did that. And so I kind of started doing that. Like Pickleman's Deli, who has a mascot now, they came up with.
Pickle?
Yeah. May or may not have been pitched by me at some point.
Okay.
And I was told that it was too expensive and it was too whatever. And I went in with a painting. So the painting is still down at the SLU location. I made this painting of Pickleback, this music group. And I had a whole backstory. Gary Pickleman was the lead singer.
Like Nickelback with the pickle version.
Right.
Okay.
And he just lived in a town. He was a cucumber, and he lived in a town with a bunch of other cucumbers. And then, like, he was always getting into things. And they're like, oh, you really got yourself into a pickle now, Gary. And he left town. He was sad and somber. He fell into a vat of brine. And he became a pickle. And he came back, and everybody's like, damn, Gary, like, looking good. And he's like, yeah, it's like, whatever, you know. And so he started a band, and it was Francis Dill, Steve Gherkin, Gary Pickleman, and Rob Sauer, I think. And so I took this painting and this backstory, and I was working with just 2 other locations at the time, and I pitched it to their corporate. I hope I don't get you guys canceled or myself. Like, Pickleman's going to come after us. A big lawsuit. And I was like, hey, and then the dude that worked at corporate at the time was like, just so you know, we've been kicking around the idea of a mascot for about 2 or 3 years. And I'm like, well, just so you know, this one is ready to rock. Like, this could be the next California race.
Literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pickleback.
Yeah.
Pickleback.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if what is their songs? What was the one that was like, was it a picture?
Photograph.
Photograph. Yeah. So they were like, nah, not really. And so I did this sample video, and to this day, like, if you go into one of the locations, I'll leave that to the listeners and watchers to figure it out. But it's 25 or 26,000 views versus like their next highest one being like 800 views. I remember at the time they're like, "Do you think this is worth X amount of dollars?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Whatever you're reaction or interactions are on it. Like, I could do your social media too if you want to pay me extra for that. They didn't like that. And then when I was out of town, the dude from corporate I had an assistant at the time because I just kind of started kicking this off my company, and he just talked to her all rude. So I called him and I'm like, hey, we're not going to do business anymore. Like, are you sure you don't want to rethink that? Because I was getting ready to do like all 18 locations at the time. And I'm like, yeah, positive. I don't want to do that. So that was the end of that. But that was the very beginning of Inside the Circle, which was my first company. So early on, I knew right away that my relationships it was relationships over money, right? Like, who can I work with long term? And how I got into that was we had fire sales at the radio station where you could buy a 30-second ad for $5 or a 60-second ad for like $10. And I was like, can I buy these? And they're like, yeah, I guess. Like, why would you want to? And I knew that if we were doing it, other channels were probably doing it. And so I went around to other channels. Like, at the time, it was like Emmis and Clear Channel, no iHeart or Hubbard yet. And I just bought inventory for like 2 years. Then like year 3, I went out, all the people that were like, oh, your station doesn't fit my demo. And I was like, how about this station? So I could sell it at a 20, 30% markup, and I get a 20% kickback from the stations as an agency. So I'm making 50% margins on these things and still selling them cheaper than what you'd get anywhere else because it doesn't expire. So that's how I started Inside the Circle. It's through radio. Then got into, because of 2 great mentors, television and print ads and 9 yards here in St. Louis.
It's awesome.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So how long did you do Inside?
Up until the pandemic.
Okay.
So on and off. There was times in there where like I didn't know what SEO marketing was or like search engine optimization. It was like new thing at some point. And so rather than like switching gears, I had to figure out how to do it. Probably my biggest weakness was also being a yes man at the time. Like, yeah, we can do that. And then stretch myself way too thin. But the SEO stuff, I went and applied and got a job at YP, just Yellow Pages Online. And I went through their training program, which was like 5 weeks. And so rather than going back to school to learn this, I got paid $9 an hour to learn it. Like, all right, you ready to go on the floor? Actually, I'm ready to go back to my business. So I just went back and used what I learned.
Thanks for paying and teaching me at the same time.
And thanks for paying to teach me. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's another prominent company that I'm still have a great relationship with here in St. Louis that does social media stuff. And it's funny because I told them that story in the interview. Still got offered the job. And I worked with them for like 6 months to learn their ways. And I just took that knowledge back. So there was dips and doozles, but we'll get into the mentorship thing later. But that was really the key. It's like finding someone to guide me.
Yeah.
It's saved me from a lot of pitfalls. But
I've experienced something very similar in my business. Like, if I
Same.
wouldn't have had the mentor that I had, then I would be where I'm at today.
And failure is like the best learner, right? So like
I
think we talked about this the other day is like, it's not about winning and losing. It's winning and learning. And if that's your mentality, then that failure wasn't really a failure. That was a chance to get better. So I always tried to bounce back better.
Thomas, and I didn't fail 10,000 times. I just learned 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but then, so started all this, and then when did Punchline kick off?
Really recently.
Okay.
So during the pandemic, I kind of had to switch gears. Most of my clients were restaurants. And yeah. So a mortgage broker friend said that that's what they call an avalanche income. So in like 19, I made X, and then in 20, I made part-time McDonald's money, basically. And I didn't get any PPP loans. I didn't get any government assistance, anything. And so it was a rough go for a while. And then I kind of stumbled into somebody I'd worked with prior had asked me to do like national sales for their app and their nonprofit arm. And so I started doing these projects and going all over, kind of making connecting dots to help raise money for veteran organizations. And through that, a very prominent company offered me a job, well-paid job, to be their director of outreach engagement nationally. So I got into that. And I started to feel some fulfillment from that because it was all nonprofit stuff. And I was like, man, this is pretty cool. And like, this company's making money off helping other people. So how can I do that? And I kept running into Reed Lowe at different events. And him and I became buddies primarily because I never watched hockey and didn't know who he was. So like we just struck up a conversation like matter of factly. It wasn't like I was fanboying out or anything. I just was like, what's up? He was cool and I was cool. And to this day, we're like brothers now. And it's a relatively new relationship, but like we have family dinners and stuff.
Yeah, for those people listening that may not know who Reed Lowe is or aren't from St. Louis and hockey fans, Blues fans, Reed Lowe was the enforcer for the Blues in the early 2000s. He's got some pretty gnarly fights on YouTube, and I know that he was posting them. He was doing something on Instagram for a while. Was that you were doing the?
It was him and I.
Yeah,
it was Friday Night Fights.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and
it was an idea he got from somebody else, but him and I executed.
Yeah, and he was posting little videos recapping some of his fights or a fight that he liked. It was pretty fun. It was pretty cool. I liked it.
Yeah, and he's a great dude.
Yeah.
And it's funny because he's never fought off the ice.
Okay.
And one of my favorite clips of his is like the announcer's talking about it pans over to him in the penalty box, and they're like, Reed Lowe has more fighting majors than any other 8 NHL teams combined. Like a singular person had more fights during that part of the season than any other 8 teams combined. So
It's awesome. It's a badass stat.
Yeah,
much different on the ice.
Yeah, he took over for Tony Twist when Tony Twist left.
Okay.
Yeah, and all those dudes, consequently, I'll fast forward that in a minute, but kind of work with a lot of enforcers. So Reed and I started kind of just collabing on stuff, and he has an events company, RL34 Events, which is an incredible company, and it's completely philanthropic for the most part. Like almost everything he does is for charities. And so he was like, let's just do this. And I was like, cool, perfect timing, and felt good. And like we were making our money and still make our money off helping other people make money. And so that is pretty fulfilling to rest your head on. I love still being involved with that at a capacity. And then at the time, he had another company that I kind of helped do business development with. So we were just full-on partners, and we were just hanging out every day and became buddies. And then one thing I forgot to mention is I had a sports radio show for many years on KFNS. And then I turned it into like a comedy satirical show for a while. But the sports thing was funny because I still to this day and didn't then know anything about sports. Like I couldn't name 7 professional athletes currently playing in collectively all the professional leagues right now.
Okay.
And that's with like understanding like how social media works and stuff. So like I know Patrick Mahomes' name, Kelsey's name because of Taylor Swift.
Right.
Like probably not a very dude thing to say, but I'm not a sports dude. Like unless my sons are playing or I'm coaching my son's sports. And so
So how did you get into sports radio if
they had a gap
really, and they just said, hey, you want
Throw
to
them in there.
Sunday morning, like nobody's listening. My friends used to Ron Burgundy me, like they would text me completely untrue stuff.
Yeah.
Like I remember I spent 20 minutes one day like praising some dude to be the first African American in MLB history to win this certain award, and then like one of my buddies was like, it's a white guy. And I'm like, damn it. So it was not great. So that's when I changed over to like satirical news.
Okay.
That show was called Know About It. So my first show was called Catch the Buzz. I don't know if it's archived anymore. And the last one was called Know About It. Know About It was more like up my alley.
Sure.
And I had a segment on there actually. I was just talking about this morning because when we get into this part, ADD's everywhere this morning. So I used to do and still do stand-up comedy. It's my hobby.
Awesome. I didn't know that. Okay, cool.
Right. So this is where Punchline comes from.
I kind of figured, well, I saw in the questionnaire that you stand-up comedy fan, which I'm a big fan as well. So
Yeah. You probably wouldn't like my stuff. I'm not that funny. But when I first started out, the scene in St. Louis was hot, and it was like Nikki Glazer was doing open mic nights still. Like her and I were running the same circuit.
Cool.
Tommy Johnigan was still doing open mic nights. Like him and I would be like a heavy anchor one night.
Yeah,
like,
I've been to the heavy anchor a couple times.
Yeah.
I did an open mic once. It didn't go so well.
The fact that you went up there and did it means it went well. You got to think about it like professional sports. Like how many people that are funny or told they're funny actually had the balls to get up and do it once.
Yeah.
So
very little.
You won, right?
Sure. Didn't feel like a win, but okay. I'll take your word for it.
It should, just for bravery.
Just getting up there.
Yeah. So it was fun. Like, and there'd be times when like there'd be like 4 or 5 people in the crowd, but I just loved it. It was very therapeutic for me to go tell my story in a comedic way, and had done zero healing my traumas at that point. So that was like my only therapy. It's just like joking about what a mundane life I had at the time, what the drudgery. And so fast forward to Punchline, and why it became a thing is I had that stuff going, and then Reed and I started doing this stuff, and I was like, man, I want to get back into radio. He's like, I'll do a show with you. Sure. So we started doing a show on KFNS, and it was called Punchline because he, as an enforcer, punched people in the face, and me, as a comedian, told jokes.
Perfect.
Punchline is where the title comes from. It's from him and I's flagship show. And then KFNS went out of business
I forgot about that. Yeah.
recently.
Yeah.
And this was right around the time that I was going through a lot of transitions in my life. So 23 was 23. We're almost going to 25. 23 was a wild year for me. I was in what I believed to be the last relationship I'd ever be in at the time, and was loving it. But what happened inevitably was a few months into that, I lost my job with that national company. And so there goes my career path where I thought I would retire. A month and a half later, my mother got ill. And then June of that year, she passed. And a lot of unrequited traumas there that I now would never solve. And then like a couple months later, one of my best friends in the whole world had a complete mental breakdown. And so I deflected all my emotional baggage and the inability to deal with my mother's passing and career changing and what am I going to do with my life and how will I ever resolve these traumas. And I just pushed it all into helping my buddy because I was like, well, I don't know how to save myself, but maybe I can save him. And luckily he's doing fantastic now and it worked. But what suffered from that was not only myself, my life became stagnant. I had a lot of crutches, like smoking weed a lot, very stagnant in my career path. I had no purpose, didn't know what to do. And then I got broken up with. And as painstaking as it is to this day, was the best thing to happen to me because I look at it like, and I don't know if you guys are religious or not. It's, I pray to God, but I also like work with the universe, right? Like I believe in the universe.
Similar.
So like we all have this energy about us. And so what happened in my brain at that time was a realization of the cyclical patterns that I had throughout relationships because of my fear and my anxious attachment style. It all stemmed from fear of abandonment. And the realization that at a certain point in your life, you can no longer just be self-aware and identify your traumas. You have to overcome them. Otherwise, they're just excuses and it's an armor. So everything I was projecting, everything I was living throughout my entirety of my life, most of my relationships, romantic or otherwise, I had this shell on and I was deflecting. And especially in like personal relationships, romantic ones, I made a conscious effort almost that became subconscious to not learn about that person, to not interact with that person because I was sure that they were going to leave. And so rather than overcoming that and becoming a better version of myself each day to create a stronger bond between the two of us, I would, when I felt love, I would deflect by self-destruction because I'm too nice to be mean. So there was never like yelling and screaming. It was just like, how unattractive can I be? Well, a dude who doesn't do anything with his life, gains weight consistently, smokes weed every night, and is just a lame ass with no direction and defensive about everything his partner says and no self-awareness.
Right.
Well, that's about as many red flags as you can toss into a fire. And so then there was this disillusion that I had that I was faking the first part of these relationships, when in actuality, that was who I am. How do I become that person permanently, right? How do I get rid of all these red flags and stay in my green flag factor? Whether it's for, at the time, was for that past relationship. When I got broken up with, the reason I mentioned God is because I thought, man, I've had so many opportunities from him. He's given me so many chances and said, hey, I want to change this. I'm going to take this away from you so you focus on me. And I think this last relationship was the realization of what I had was, he was like, hey, do you love this person? I've never been married. Do you love this person enough to marry them? Yes. Answer. Good. I'm going to take it away from you instantaneously. I'm going to jolt the thing you love the most in this world so you can finally realize you can't continue this way, right? Because there's peaks and valleys. Whenever I was in a relationship, it was a valley. And so that realization pushed me into a position where the first month or two, my changes were to try and prove something to her. Like, I am worthy.
Shouldn't have left, kind of thing.
Yeah. And then at some point, I've now changed the phrase because I look at it as God finally being like, like a dad would be like, come on, man. And then eventually he's going to spank your ass.
Right.
Spank my ass. And so I looked at it as like, eventually I don't like the phrase faking it till you make it, but I now look at that as doing it till you become it.
That's great.
So I created the habits out of need and necessity to be loved and validated, but I've continued the habits to continue to validate and love myself, which is a much easier way to live because I can live in gratitude and servitude and be thankful for everything. We can talk about like my morning routine that helps that, but it started off as for somebody else. Now it's become solely for me. People, not unlike yourselves, that have gravitated into my life because of that, and what God has given me because of that, because I'm walking my purpose, has been incredible. I've never felt this way in my life, and so I don't regret that heartbreak. It still tings at me and lingers because it's not that old. I'm grateful for it because I wouldn't be where I'm at with every mistake, everything that has happened before, good or bad.
That's great, man.
Awesome. So you said something about your morning routine. So was a part of kind of what helped you kind of figure yourself out?
Yeah. I mean, the thing I admired most about my ex was her, I saw this book, The Daily Stoic. She's a very stoic person, right? She's unbothered by things, but not because of lack of care, but because of her self-awareness. And so the understanding that I dove into stoicism. And so I've accumulated some different habits, but my morning routine basically is a mind shift and a win for the day. So I start off my morning. The very first thing I do is I have a journal I keep by my bed. That's my worry journal. And so like today, if I get mad in traffic or if I lose my temper in a meeting and whatever it else is, that counts as a worry to me also because that's something I want to change in my behavior. So in the mornings when I wake up, I write down what I'm worried about or what I would like to have changed yesterday. So some of the worries might include like, how am I going to get I've got conflicting interests now because I coach my youngest son's basketball team. Well, the first two practices of this year are tomorrow night when I already have an event, next Monday when I already have an event. And it's like, I agreed to coach this team, but I'm like, oh, the head coach can't show up to the first two practices. That worries me. So I write that down and then I write, what can I do about that today? What can I do about it this week, this month? The same as I blew up yesterday. What can I do differently next time? How can I effectively make that change and create a habit so that it's second nature? And that gets that out of my brain onto paper. But now it's not pulling at me during the day. And then immediately to shift my mindset is something that I really love that I've done because it seems so simple, but it's been great for me. I'm not a mental health expert by any means, but it works for me. Is then I pray in gratitude. And I start with small or big things. It's always 8 to 15 things a day. But the little tiny things that we don't think about, like forget first world problems. Like I'm grateful I have all 4 limbs. I'm grateful that when I open my eyes, I can see my room. I'm grateful that I get to get my son ready for school in the morning. The little things. And that puts me in a mindset of like, man, my life is so much better than I may have thought it was. From there, I work out. I find that not only does it scientifically release endorphins and all that sort of stuff, but it's part of my mindset. So what happens is that after I work out or during a workout, I'll listen to an audiobook to try and learn something, or I'll watch a documentary about how to do something. Like one of the most obscure ones was like how to start a t-shirt company. Never will I start a t-shirt company, but now I know how.
You know how?
Like so. And then after that learning period, then I will listen to Proverbs or audio Bible to kind of strengthen my spirit a little bit. And then some self-affirmation stuff usually is my last thing on the way, like Stuart Smalley type shit, right? Like I am good enough, I am strong enough, I am worthy of love. Because when you speak positively to yourself, it has the same effect as when you're speaking positively to somebody else or negatively to somebody else. You're the most important person in your life for your own kids because it's face mask mentality, right? So because of those habits and living that daily routine. If I have a bad moment or a bad day, I don't know the last time I had a bad day. I've had bad moments because no matter what that moment is, I know tomorrow's going to be better because I'm stronger, closer to God, mentally healthier. I'm more self-aware. I'm a better version of myself, no matter what happens throughout that day. So I get to start tomorrow with anew.
I think that's great.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I know so many people that like one little thing will go wrong in a day, and the next thing you know, their entire day is ruined.
Yeah.
It's like just like you said, it's just a moment. All in all, you hardly had a really good day, but all in all, you're going to let one moment that might have lasted for 5 minutes screw up the remaining 23 hours and 55 minutes. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's part of kind of where that gratitude piece falls in, at least in
Sure.
my, where I have a bad moment or a bad, I have a phone call, a deal falls apart, I have something happen. It's like, I got to remind myself of all the other great things I have in my life
Right.
before, and that kind of helps dig me personally.
Yeah. It's like you're putting yourself in a mental prison. And I didn't even realize, because I used to tell my sons about it all the time, and I still do. My youngest one's real big on it. Like, something bad will happen to him. He'll be a grump for a long time. Probably seen it.
Mm.
And I just sit down and talk to him. So him and I have an agreement, too, we made 6 months or so ago. No yelling and screaming or spanking anymore. It's just, and I was never like huge on spanking. I think 4 times his life, but we don't do that. We talk about things, because something I had read about when everything your kid does wrong, quote unquote, has a disciplinary action attached to it, at some point they become liars
To avoid the punishment.
because they don't want to get punished. And so we look at a lot, like, obviously, like if you're, doing something ridiculous, you're getting punished. But even then, we talk about the punishment and why, his responsibility in that scenario. What could you have done differently? And if during that conversation, I come to the conclusion that he understands what he could have done differently, takes on responsibility, okay, cool, try that next time, right? And then there's no punishment per se. Just, we had to talk about it. We learned a lesson. And since we've started doing that, he opens up. And like, I just let him talk sometimes. And other times there needs to be a punishment. And we're like, all right, so could you have done that differently? Yeah. Who's responsible for that? Because he always tries to scapegoat, most kids do. Well, if so-and-so wasn't doing this, I wouldn't have laughed and outburst. Or if so-and-so hadn't called me stupid, I wouldn't have pushed him. Okay, well, we can't control him, but we control our actions. So we're going to go without electronics for 2 days. Deal? Yeah. Okay, but mad at me right now. Did I do this? Is it my responsibility? Or was it your actions that get these things taken away? My responsibility. Okay, cool. As long as we know that. So then usually by like 3 hours, once he processes, he'll be chill.
Yeah.
Gets that.
Yeah, we were talking about that yesterday when we were sitting up at the club, and I was telling him, I told him about the book that we're reading right now, and that's a lot of the premise around it, which, it's 2 things can be true at once. So like, yeah, your child could be bad, but your child's not a bad person. Like they could have
He made a bad choice.
Yeah, he made a bad choice, but he's not a bad person. He can still be a good person, and you can still punish him, and but he can still feel sad about it, and it's just I mean, I've learned a lot so far from reading this book, and like I said, I'm pretty far behind. I think about 100 pages in. I still got some.
Yeah, we're about the same spot.
Yeah, I got
I've some catching up to do.
Well, I've got a week in Florida to catch up on that. So
there you go. Yeah.
So it'll be, maybe I'll just audiobook it and listen to it on the way down there.
Yeah, I'd be lying to you if I've already planned. I'm like, I'm gonna need to audiobook the last half of this because I feel like I'm not gonna make it.
Well, I mean,
I feel like I learned better at that, or at least I can consume it. I almost can consume it faster for sure, but like I don't know,
Right.
something about hearing it. I'm just such a big like podcast listener, and
Yeah.
it's just like how I consume so much is just through listening, because it's like I can do other things while I'm doing it. Like I'll throw one headphone in and like do the dishes or come down here and do like work or whatever. I go outside and pick up the yard or pick up dog poop or whatever. I can do it with a headphone in and consume while I'm doing something else, which is why I like doing it like that.
Yeah, and I'll listen to it and then like kind of pick out key points and then go back and like reread those so I can better understand it. Yeah, no, Dalton and I are driving down Saturday, so Melissa and him are reading the book as well. So him and I can knock out the book, rub it in Melissa's face while she's down there trying to figure that out.
Yeah, because we're gonna do a podcast with my wife and then his ex-wife, and just do like this parenting kind of like after we read this book about it and kind of review it together.
Yeah.
So, because we do that once a month, book review. where him and I read a book
That was
together.
that one that I told you about last night.
Yeah.
Good inside.
Yeah, I wrote it down. I'm going to check it out too.
Yeah, so
I'm going to audiobook it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I wonder if your comprehension is, because you guys are both high performers career wise too. So like, I wonder if it's something about the thought of I'm spending this time reading right now. I could be doing other things.
100%.
Yeah,
That is
absolutely.
what it is for me. For
So
sure.
it's probably hard to comprehend because you're like,
I could be
shoot, I need.
There's
Yeah.
so many other
Prep for
things I
this
could be
house or
doing.
whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can be doing other things while I'm driving or while I'm doing whatever around the house or like just knocking out like mundane like little things. I can just do it while I'm listening to something.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a piece of it.
Have you tried setting space out for those things though?
For reading or
Mm-hmm.
for those things.
For reading,
Yeah.
Yes. Well,
like blocked off on your calendar, physical calendar. Because I don't know if you've seen it or not, but he and most people have made fun of me for it. Not really, but
I haven't. I think it's great.
lightly. I keep a paper calendar.
Okay.
And I write down everything. And so like my morning routine or like my evening walks, my time with that, I've got time blocked out for those things because I make time for myself first.
Love that.
I find I have more time now. I used to like finish my day and be like, damn,
Got to
get
do all
this
these
done
things.
or blah, 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 you know, I don't have time. Now I'm like, by 8:00 at night, I'm satisfied that I've done everything I can do for the day.
Yeah, I definitely could be better about that. I typically read in the mornings, like first thing when I wake up. I wake up, walk downstairs, sit on the couch, open the book, till my kids wake up. Usually what I do. But like, yeah, 2 days ago, my wife comes down and I fell back asleep on the couch in mid book, like, because it's just, But so yeah, I mean, I need to be better about time blocking and making those times like set in stone for sure.
Yeah, it's that thing that again I only say this because I was taught it through this thing. It's so valuable. So it may not work for everybody, but like during this growth period, I've been a yes man to different modalities that I would have thought goofy. 8 months ago, I knew what sound baths were, but I'm like, what? No, but I'll do it now and done it.
What's a sound bath?
Yoga I've done, breath therapy. Sound bath is basically meditation,
Oh, okay.
like bowls and sounds.
Oh, okay.
That. Okay. Yeah.
But like breath therapy, remarkable for me. Like I don't know what works for everybody, but like there was something about that, man. And it's just 20 minutes.
Is this something you do yourself?
No, it was
go to a class?
meditated. It was during this contrast therapy was the overall arching thing. Plunge 360, cold 360. I'll get you the right information so you can add this.
Yeah.
Aaron does the breath work and Samantha does the contrast therapy. So it's like you do this breath work for like 20 minutes and then you get into a cold plunge for 3 minutes. You do a sauna for like 5 to 10 minutes and then you do a cold plunge and
Is
sauna.
this breath exposure STL? I feel like I'm seeing them on Instagram.
No,
something.
but there's
a bunch of these.
There's
yeah.
things
Yeah.
like this.
Yeah.
But the breath work part was like not life changing for me, but really helped me understand better how to meditate. It's like meditative music, and then you're doing this breath work, and he's basically just guiding you on how to breathe through this thing, like all these like weird. What you think would be weird?
The Hoff.
Wim Hof.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was cool, and like I've done yoga, I've done CrossFit, I've done all these different things. It's all the stuff that I think of it now as even if it is a placebo. Like I'm still not convinced that infrared doesn't, but just based on what I've read,
Yeah,
know about the area, what they use it for. So I'm like, whatever. But I do it all the time, and in my brain, it's helping me stay young.
Yeah.
Right. And so
100%.
I think that the placebo effect we know scientifically is a thing. So I'll try any modality because of some people, your mind heals a lot. Your mind can heal physical pain or like cancers and stuff, right? Like there's these studies that show this
For sure.
thought process. So I try everything modality wise if it's healthy. I don't look at it as hokey. I haven't done tarot reading.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm that naivete to go the Miss Cleo route, but anything physical or mental that could be of a healthy capacity, I try it out.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So you mentioned something about a mentor being kind of really in your life. Kind of elaborate on that because that's something that Pat and I have both had great experiences with.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and part of that too is I had a stepdad growing up as of like 5 or 6 years old, but don't know who my father is. Not the foggiest idea. Not even first name. And so the two people I looked up to in my life growing up, my grandparents raised me primarily. And so he retired when I was in like 3rd grade. My grandfather did sometime primary school. And so I didn't understand what hard work was because this dude's like at home all the time. We just have money. My grandma didn't work. I'm like, wait, we have food and stuff. We go on family vacations. He's not going to work every day. And then like my stepdad worked his butt off, still does, like 6-7 days a week. Didn't have much to show for that either. So like I could sit at home and collect money somehow. I don't know yet as a kid. Or I could bust my hump and still be in this kind of same realm. Where's my direction? And so, stumbling through a lot of different things. And then later on in life, my first real like mentor was a dude named Edmund Crystal. He owned the Crystal ad agency. So this is when I was first starting out inside the circle. And first person I hired was an assistant. She was like, let me introduce you to this guy. He does what you do. And at the time, he passed in 21, fortunately. But at the time, he had like GG Hams, Creve Coeur Camera, West County Auto Body, like all these things. And he kept his stuff small. And he just kind of went over with me how he does like 4, 8, 12-month contracts rather than 6 and 12. Why this transition works. And he still wrote all his invoices on a typewriter.
Oh, wow.
Typewriter. Like in 2012, 14, typewriter. And then he was like, where do you see yourself? And I remember like the first time we met, I asked the dude, he's like, do you have any questions for me? And I'm like, 1, can you adopt me? And 2, can we meet every week? And he was like, I can definitely meet every week, but I'm done raising kids. And so we just met like all the time. And I remember at some point he brought in this other dude who he worked with at Brown Shoe Company. He was in marketing at Brown Shoe before he started singing. And the other guy was Larry Hughes, who later started the Hughes ad agency, Hughhes.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen
I just don't know if I'm saying like Hughes or huge.
Yeah.
I kind of a Trump accent about it.
Huge.
Huge agency, which is now HLK ad agency. So it's like a publicly traded. It's a big. And so these 2 dudes were gracious enough to meet with me at Caldy's Coffee in Clayton, like at least twice a month. And we would just sit down and shoot the breeze, and they would talk to me about marketing and how they got started and where they found success and where they didn't. And so I had 2 examples, like this big conglomerate and this dude who rented an office space from Sunset Draperies because he also did their advertising and had a very comfortable life because he kept his shop small and he ran his stuff clean, and he connected his people to different television, radio, and print ads. He would take that 20% markup. And so at some point around 2016, these dudes just unleashed the floodgates. After that, I guess they were confident they all had a common enough thing, and they called everybody they knew. So I started getting emails and phone calls from like all the television stations, all the print companies, all the everything. They're like, hey, Larry said you're the next guy to know in marketing. And so 2018, the 920 square foot office in Chesterfield, 2 part-time salespeople that I hired from a restaurant that I frequented at the time, and an assistant, we were top 5 ad agencies in St. Louis, up against like Merritt's and stuff.
Oh, wow.
It was like this much space and like this many, right? But we had like 36 clients on the books. We were making headway, and we were doing good work because we were a handshake company. I think that's what got us the farthest, and that's why I'm still these dudes were very much about like just do what you say you're gonna do and ask people what they need. Like agencies now, like I've sat in on stuff and I've worked with this project management or a consultant, will come in and tell you what you need, and you can't sell beard butter, hand wraps, and protein drinks the same way.
Right.
Different demographic, different style. But so many agencies will go in and be like, "Oh yeah, we do this. This is how we do it. This is your format. This is what this money gets you." Whereas these dudes taught me to go in and basically say, "Okay, it's a $10 rule. So if you have $10 to spend on, here's free advice that I got, so I'll give it out. Is if you have $10 to spend on marketing, you use $5 on acquisitions, new clients, $3 on retention, keeping your current clients, $2 is your wild card. So this $2 is where I operate. That's my branding money. And so one of the things that I feel helped me be successful in this industry was that I never went in and promised an ROI. Early on I did. I shouldn't say never. Early on I did, before I knew the lessons. But then you're setting yourself up for failure. Because if I'm like, yeah, spend 1,000, you'll make 2,000. Don't.
They look at you like a liar.
Right. But if I go in and say, I can assure you that I can help you get your name out there so more people know who you are. This is how much it'll cost you. And this is what you should do with the rest of your money. No brainer. Really no harm, no foul. I'm still helping you navigate like, yeah. Now, rather than telling you how to do your acquisitions, I go into this discovery phase. My first meeting was always discovery. What have you done? What's worked? What wouldn't you never do again? You know, what's working for your competition? Who is your competition? Let's see where they're advertising. What are they doing? Almost 100% of the time, it was never ad pages as the answer for restaurants, even though like so many restaurant new owners are like, well, the people from ad pages came in and said that the people in the community have been asking when we're going to put coupons out. So do you really think, for one instant, that somebody at home, 3 of us are sitting around like, man, I really want to try that new restaurant, but I'm going to wait for a coupon.
Right.
like what?
Yeah.
And I'm like, does that even sound logical to you? And how they sell you on that, right? And like, you're going to spend $2,500 a month. And so the biggest clarity there that I was able to like shine on to people was like, what do you do when you get that value pack in the mail? And like almost every answer was throw it away.
Right.
Including mine.
Yeah.
Why do you think spending $2,500? Cartvertising is another one of my clients did. But Schnucks, they bought this, and I don't think it was Schnucks that does it.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Those
The
ads that used to be on
plastic things, like little billboards on the insides of the carts.
Yeah. I said, how many times, tell me one of those you've seen. He's like, well, they're on every cart. I'm like, yeah, tell me one of the ads you've seen on it. I don't know. I don't look at it.
Yeah.
They're right in front of you. So why are you spending money on it, dude?
Yeah. Like the ones
Like,
you see at the urinals, like right there in front of the girls.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know those guys. I know those guys.
But I mean, I'm sure advertising and all that is, I mean, it's had to have changed now with the rise of social media, and I mean, is print and all that still really relevant these days now that you've got social media with what it is?
Depends.
Oh.
I think there's a place for everything. That it's going to phase out.
Yeah.
But you still have your 55 plus, 60 plus now probably at this point demo that prefers to read.
Yeah.
But what's the accessibility of it? And will they read it online? I still consider online articles print ads, just in a different format.
Gotcha.
But I think that when you're talking about, there's definitely a difference in the way things are consumed. But it's one of those things about going back to basics, at least I found in my experience, because obviously I market and advertise for brands I build on Punchline. Right? And the basics for me were always tell the story, connect with the people. So I prefer and think that lifestyle resonates better than head on apply directly to forehead type ads, right? Mm. So like one of the ones that always sticks out in my brain that I love to reference, kind of mold and model things around, is the old Butterball. Okay. So an old Butterball commercial, like late 80s, early 90s, would be like a family playing football in the yard, and there's leaves all around because it's fall, and they're sitting around the table, and there's laughter, and you're like, man, I want to be a part of that family. And at the very end, it just says Butterball. Shit, that's the key. I need that
Just
turkey.
need that turkey.
Like if I want that life, I need that turkey.
Yeah.
And so like that's kind of how I think about things. And that's why I say I always commercialize things, because somebody will talk or do something, and to me, I can run a commercial in my head simultaneously and be like, oh, that's how I would. That would make me feel the way that our conversation just made me feel. So when I come up with an ad or a brand build, like one of the things we're working on now. So besides running shows on Punchline, what I feel sets us apart as a network is that we build the brands beyond the shows. So you have your show, but what's going to bring value to that show? Why do A, people want to watch it, and B, companies want to be a sponsor and be involved in it? And that is if that name gets bigger. And it's always been in my mindset that it's less expensive to create a brand than it is to buy a brand. So in other words, I can make YouTube famous way cheaper than I can go buy someone who's already famous to do a show. So if I have to pay a talent fee out to Ozzie Smith. And Mr. Smith, I don't know what your rates are.
Right.
But worked with him a lot of times. Gracious dude. Like anytime you run into that guy, he'll use your first name once he learns it. Just a really classy guy. But he's got a price tag because people want him as a commodity, right? And so, like, let's say that he was doing a show and his talent fee was $4,000 an episode, whereas you don't have a talent fee currently. I don't have a talent fee currently.
Right.
So $100 in my pocket makes sense to me, right? And so now I can go out and build that brand. So what we're doing now is back to Punchline. So we also work with Cam Jansen, has a show called Conversation on there, and he does more like micro dirty jobs type stuff. And Jim Campbell does a show called Soup du Jour. His nickname was Soupy. So we're taking
former hockey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Both,
I'm
both,
kind of
both,
like you. I'm kind of
both
like you. I
guys.
don't know a ton of.
So
ton of-
yeah, Cam Jansen followed. So it went Tony Twist, Chase,
Twist.
Reed, and then Jansen was towards the end of Reed's career, and
They
then
played a little bit together.
Yeah, and then Jansen, and then I guess that would have run into Ryan Reeves.
Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't remember him.
So
Yeah.
Yeah. Outside of MMA, I know very professional athletes.
Well, and then they're all good buddies with Tony Twist, who's like,
Yeah.
that's like their big uncle of it.
Yeah,
right?
for
And
sure.
him and Chaser were like the big
the
dogs.
big guys.
I mean, the Cam grew up watching those dudes, and that's
Yeah,
why
like I remember Cam
got it.
Jansen. Like I don't remember any of the old guys. I mean, I was born in '93, so
Oh,
Yeah. So that Chase and Twist would have been.
yeah, before
You
my
would have
time.
been a baby when they were. Yeah.
are
'Cause
you
they were
closer
in
to
the-
my age?
I'm 36.
Oh, so you're both kind
Yeah,
of young guys.
I was 88, but I got towards the end of Chase and Twist's
Yeah.
career, and then got to see Reed's full career and Cam's full career.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so we work with all those dudes.
Okay.
And so 2 Men in a Garden, gracious enough to help us create a barbecue sauce line. So bare knuckle barbecue,
Sweet.
right, is so each of the guys have their own flavor.
oh, that's cool.
And it's based off their names. Like kind of work in progress, but these are basically twisted sauce.
Okay.
We twist, right?
Yep.
Sweet and low, Reed and low. Cam's Bam Bam sauce.
Okay.
And then Soupy, ever the comedian. He wants to do maybe something a little offset, so we might do like a Soupy sriracha. Or
Okay.
something, right?
All
So
right, cool.
but that's how we're branding outside of that. So that's static income for us. Because then all they have to do is go out and do some autograph signings for some bottles 2 or 3 times and gets their name out there. It's cool for the community because they
Yeah.
get to meet these people, hang out, and these dudes are all incredibly gracious. They love their bands and town mates. I mean, they all stayed here in St. Louis. You know, Cam's from here, but they'll tell you firsthand, like, it's the love that they get from everybody that why they love being here. So it's a chance to give back, and then part of that will go to charity, part of that will go to us, and it's a cool little deal. Riser United, another company I work with, they send us gear, and then we have our own portal. So on riserunited.com, you can go in and you can shop anything in the store under Punchline, and you'll get 15. Right now, you get 20% off of everything, and then Punchline makes a very small percentage on the back end of everything you buy through us. So not only do you get that discount, but we make a little that way too. And those are great partnerships because there's no skin off anybody's back, but we get to push stuff out and grow our brand and help other brands and help other people interact with the community that we love. And so it's really a win-win for everybody. And so I took my marketing and advertising background and just brought it into media world. So we
Of
do
today, coming from
Yeah.
TV and radio, which is not as big as it once was, in my opinion, because of shows like podcasts and all these like independent forms of media, and you're like taking these older concepts of in radio and TV and bringing them to like
New age.
Yeah.
stuff.
kind of
Yeah.
Which is why I say
Smart.
stay into the basics,
yeah,
right? Like,
awesome.
Like, yeah, maybe you'll never convince me that there's been a better player than Jordan. But whatever it
Yes,
is the game has evolved, but you still got to dribble the ball. You
Right.
still got to shoot the ball. Like the basics are all the same. Football's the same way,
Still 10
right?
players on the court.
Right. Like Mahomes may very well pass up Brady as the GOAT.
Sure.
Right? If
Keeps up.
they win this year, it'll be the only team in NFL history to win 3 Super Bowls back to back. Few teams have won 2.
Mhm.
Nobody's ever won 3. That could be nuts.
Yeah.
Automatic GOAT status right there.
Yeah.
So he's evolved as a player. Even Brady during his career evolved, and he talks about like how he takes care of his body.
Mhm.
Right? Like they didn't the longevity wasn't there. Like
You
people were,
should have done jujitsu.
Yeah.
would that have helped?
Had the same. Might still be married to Giselle.
Yeah,
They'd have
maybe.
the same-
Yeah, I was gonna say she left him for a jiu-jitsu coach.
He's like, you want to fight for it? He's like, I don't.
Yeah.
Actually, I just
Don't,
want to
yeah.
put my Uggs on and go in here and
Yeah.
not eat tomatoes.
Right. And not eat tomatoes.
Those are two things he
Forgot about
does.
that. Yeah, he
Yeah.
doesn't need any nightshades, right?
Yeah.
Funny.
So, yeah, maybe he should have been tougher. But the basics stay the same. So I just try and apply those same principles. Plus, I'm like a grassroots dude. Like I've always believed in the power of like getting in somebody's face. Roofing companies, for example, like nothing beats a door knock.
Yeah. Well, that's why we won't do, because we've had people, I've had people reach out from different parts of the country that want to like zoom in, and we're like, no, you want to do the show once you hear in person. That's how we're doing our show. Is everything's gonna be face to face.
Yeah. Yeah, I've not done any virtuals yet either. A lot of people do that.
I've
Yeah,
done
they do.
I've
Just-
done a virtual with somebody in Kansas City on his, and I was like, yeah, it was fine, but I don't know. I like this better.
Yeah.
Much better.
Next, there's a vibe you get when someone's in the room. You know, you sense body language.
Right.
And, you know, with the Zoom, I feel like there's like a little bit of a delay with like the audio, and I don't know. Just I like it better in person.
Yeah. And it feels like you're just watching somebody's meeting.
Yeah.
For
Right.
me.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to sit down and watch it.
I don't want to sit
Yeah.
down like we're just hanging out. You know, I want to
Yeah.
I want to know what it is to hang out with Corey for an hour and a half. You know,
Right.
Like, that's what I want.
Sure.
So, but yeah, I mean, for us, like with our branding and stuff that we've done with the show, obviously we've got social media stuff that we do and post on, but you know, we've sponsored some jiu-jitsu matches, professional matches. What else have we done? We've got it's sponsoring the hockey league that I play in on Wednesday
Oh, yeah,
nights. It's
yeah.
on the website for that league.
What's your hockey league you play in?
It's at Brentwood. It's not associated, like, so Brentwood has the BHL, which is an adult men's league. But this is just some guy that used to play in the BHL went and bought 3 hours worth of ice on Wednesday nights. So he just owns that slot. Then he created his own league, 30 and up. And it's a pretty solid league. There's some good players in there. So
30 and up, though, sounds like a lot of injuries waiting to happen.
believe it or not, there's not. I mean,
Really?
because we're not. It's no check. Like, I mean,
Oh,
you can.
Light check.
Yeah, you just can't like finish.
Come in there and
guys.
be an asshole.
Right.
It's a
So
gentleman's
yeah,
check.
and everybody's out there.
I was like, because on skates, you're probably what, 7 foot tall?
pretty close. Yeah.
You're a giant. You'd probably be
Yeah.
a circus bear on
Yeah.
skates. I'd be
So-
terrified of it.
Circus bear.
So yeah, but that's the thing, is everybody just wants to come out and play and skate. Nobody, like, we all got to get up and go to work the next day. Nobody
yeah,
wants to. Nobody's out there trying to hurt somebody.
Yeah.
And if there is, they get put in their place pretty quickly. Not just by the other team, but by the guys on their team, because they know it's going to get retaliated.
Mhm.
And so, but yeah, I mean, for the most part, yeah. I mean, like I said, you can kind of run guys off into the boards. You just can't like finish the check. Like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can't just smoke a guy. Definitely no open eye sits. But yeah, I mean, there's some funky things that can happen. Obviously, like with any sport, you can get hurt. But I mean, for the most part, you're not seeing too many injuries.
Yeah,
So-
Nick talked about it on the show, I think, or maybe I don't even know if he brought it up on the show, but then Nick was like, "Oh, did Pat tell you about the other night?" And he got like,
Oh yeah.
Sandwiched?
yeah,
Yeah. So I play defense, but I'm more of an offensive minded defenseman. So I picked the puck up and was trying to Bobby Orr it, taken from end to end, and came in on 2 defensemen, and I went to split them. Well, there was a third guy kind of coming in this way. Well, these 2 guys pinched, and I got between them, but they like spun me around, and so I was skating backwards, and I ran into the third guy coming in, and I like Henry Rowan Gardnered it from what was that movie, Little Big League, whatever.
Oh, Rookie of the Year? Right?
Rookie of the Year, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Where he
came-
breaks his elbow?
yeah. So I mean, like, I don't have the video of it, but everybody's like, dude, you were 5 feet off the ground and you came down, and I smoked hard on my arm, separated my shoulder. I was like, oh, fuck.
yeah. Hence the 30 and up
Yeah,
league,
30
you know, with no checking.
Yeah, way to prove me wrong.
Yeah. No checking that. That was
way to prove me wrong.
in the 5 years.
Sounds like a lot of injuries. No, not at all.
In the 5
Last week, I separated my shoulder.
in the 5 years that I've been since I've started playing again.
Yeah.
That was the only time.
Well, if it was 40 and up, it'd probably be different. Like, I quite literally was standing fully erect, straight up, and looked down. And I guess this position isn't a position I typically do, just to make sure I'm buttoning my pants correctly, and to hurt my back. This is like 4 weeks ago, and I'm fairly physically fit. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not like peak physical condition, but I'm whatever. So like to the point where like I heard a loud pop. It was center of my back. I immediately laid on my bed, fetal position on my back though, and like rotated my hips to make sure I wasn't paralyzed. Because I was like, why would that have hurt so bad and sounded so loud? Like what just happened?
Yeah, what did I do?
I think it was just my spine was not used to that, so there was like air in there, and it was like, yeah, and it was just terrifying, really.
Oh,
Yeah,
sure.
for sure.
So I was like, did I just paralyze myself from the waist down by trying to put my pants on?
My pants, yeah.
It's amazing how the body wears down at once you hit 30. I mean,
33 is when they say you stop like developing new molecular structure in your body.
Oh, shit.
Okay. Well,
2 more years.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I have to stretch for a while before I do any activities now, or before, I mean, I remember especially baseball, like, hey, you got to get hot. You got to get hot quick. So you like do a couple calisthenics and you're on the mound throwing as hard as you can with, as quick as you can. So, but now there's no way in hell. Like I'm having to stretch for like an hour before I want to do anything.
Yeah, wait until you hit 40s, man. I'm 41 this year. Like a low toilet makes me feel like I should probably do some stretching before I sit down. Like, I don't know. That thing looks pretty close to the ground. Yeah. I want to check my hammies before I get on there.
Make sure those hip flexors
are
loosened
warm.
up.
Yeah, I rode a bike recently with my son, and like I've been riding fairly regularly now, and I could feel it. My ball joints and my hips, both of them were hurting because I was rotating them different the way than I had in years. And I was like, man, my hips hurt?
Yeah.
Both hips?
Both? Both of them?
What in the hazy?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm worried about that because my dad's had both of his hips replaced. So I'm like, fuck, is that like a genetic thing and that I'm going to be dealing with hip stuff? But then also think about all the fucking shit that I put my body through with baseball. People don't realize it, but it's not it's not like physical, like you're not hitting or but like
you have less cartilage left.
The strains you put on your joints are insane. Like I know that if I try to go and snap off a slider or a curveball right now, my elbow's going to blow up. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy that I can still pick up my kids. But yeah, that was like the biggest thing. I was like, I always want to make sure that I can at least pick my kids up when they're young from baseball, just because I know that the wear and tear, like the joint stuff and the ligaments and all that, that's where you're seeing guys in baseball get fucked up.
Yeah. Be prepared to pick up when they're older, too. My 9-year-old is teetering on 90 pounds and still expects me to carry him in when he falls asleep. He'll sit on my shoulders. Like, really? As of recent, he still sits on my. You've seen how
he's big,
large he is.
He's on my
12.
shoulders.
Yeah, he looks ridiculous on my shoulders. But his brother did the same thing.
Really?
When his older brother was little, I remember that at one point I had called his mom.
Were they similar in like size when your oldest was his age? Your oldest is a pretty good sized kid too.
Yeah, but he's probably done.
Football,
He's like my size.
Yeah.
Little dude's probably gonna be the biggest of all of us.
Yeah.
His mother's stock is larger.
Gotcha.
She has 8 older brothers, and they're all larger than me.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Like the smallest one is your size.
Okay.
And you're probably 3 inches taller than me. I'm 6'2".
Yeah, I'm 6'3".
If I stand fully erect.
Yeah, I think I'm about similar in height. A little taller.
You seem taller.
A little tall. Maybe a little bit, but not much.
Just with your broader shoulders.
That could be it too. Yeah. A little wider.
But yeah, I think her shortest brother is like 6'4".
Okay.
Shit.
So he'll be a big dude.
Yeah.
And he's stockier than his brother. Like he's dense.
Yeah.
Like a dying star.
Yeah. That's how my youngest is. My youngest is very, very thick.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's built like I am. My oldest is built like my ex-wife.
I'm thinking about him like a little gold brick.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't look that heavy.
No.
Pick his ass up.
Oh, for sure. They're the same. So my oldest is probably about 4 or 5 inches on my youngest, height wise. But my youngest weighs more than my oldest but like not by much, by like 2 or 3 pounds. But when you go to pick him up, you swear he's like 20 pounds heavier than Connor. Just because of how dense he is.
Density.
He's just dense.
Yeah, body. Yeah, people just feel different. Like the way people are built.
Yeah.
It's just wrestling and stuff. Just kind of people just have different feels. Like when
little man's stocky. Like when I boxed it. That's something I did when I was younger.
Okay.
190.
Okay.
Right, and I'm probably 197, 196. Last month put on some holiday party weight, and so I've been cleansing lately. But hence, this is my breakfast this morning. Shout out to
I love
Fairlife.
these. Oh, dude, I got a bunch of them in the fridge upstairs.
Yeah, well, they're expensive. It'd be great if they would sponsor one of our shows.
Yeah. Hey, that's how we got neural.
That's how we got neural coming. Yeah.
So, the density thing is real. Children.
Oh, absolutely.
But that was what I was going to say. My older one used to like called his mom at one point. I was like, hey, if you take him to the pediatrician before I do, have him check out his knees. And she's like, why? He was probably like 6. I was like, because every time we're out somewhere, he's like, pick me up because my knees hurt. It's like, Corey, he walks with me everywhere. He's playing you for a fool, and you're buying into it. And I'm like, well, I guess whatever. So like at 9, still Tyson's like, sometimes he'll be like, Dad, can I get on your shoulders? I'm tired. Or he'll be like, he's like, it's really hot out here. Can I get on your shoulders? We'll be at the zoo or something. I'm like, what do you think adding 90 pounds to my neck's going to do? Like, if you're hot, I'm hot. Right? Like, look how small you are. Like, you think I'm not sweating my balls off? Yeah, jump on my neck, 90-pound kid. So I let him.
Right, of course. Of course.
Put on a 90-pound necklace.
As dads, that's what we do.
Yeah. So I got like a rucksack where all the weight's just around the bottom of my neck.
Yeah.
Have you guys heard of prawning?
Uh-uh.
It's hilarious. So it's like, it's really relevant once you know. Because you know how like when you get a prawn, it's like this, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like office prawning. So like we spend so much of our time like on the computer, like doing this,
Hunched
or
over.
like reading our phone at night like this. Next one. And so they call it prawning now. And I often think of that because when I'm driving, I'm like this too. And so like whenever I catch myself, I'm like,
Shoulders back.
Shoulders back.
Yeah.
Head back.
And so
Engage the core.
yeah, I'm going to lose us a potential sponsor by this one because I was talking to Scott at the club, and I was like, hey, I want to get one of those things that pulls your shoulder. Work on it. He goes, okay. He goes, but think about this. He's like, if that's doing all the work, think you'll be permanently that way, or it's just going to work while it's on? I'm like, oh, yeah. Strengthen the muscles. Now I'm just trying to strengthen these muscles, but I don't have a perm prawn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like a dinosaur. Like a stegosaurus looking for food and
T-Rex.
prehistoric jungles.
Yeah.
So speaking of the club, how did you get set up and hooked up with the club?
I was working with a couple different organizations that were in the club. So
Okay.
originally I did some work with the Hero Network. Still help them out whenever I can. I like that organization a lot. And then Reed and I had the events thing. And so Metzner, who's the head of the Hero Network, and Reed were both essentially members, like from the jump. So I was at the soft opening.
Gotcha.
And I was there all the time. And Scott's like, hey, you're here an awful lot. When are you going to join?
Right.
And I gave the cardinal rule wrong answer, which was when I get a few more clients. And he's like, no, that's not what and he kind of explained to me. I was like, oh, that makes more sense. Like, what can I do to help out? And so originally I came in there to just help out with their events.
Gotcha. And then you just put a podcast studio in, or was that their idea to begin with, and you just kind of ran with it?
No, that was so much more recent. So I was doing my own thing, and then like when our secondary company, Reed and I had, that's how Punchline came to be. So Reed and I had a discussion back in like May or June, and we knew coming down the pipeline we were about to lose one of our companies, and which meant I'm losing X amount of income, he's losing X amount of income. And so I kind of, and this was during that whole transition of the breakup and the other thing. So a lot of transition, and I was like, well, damn. So what do I do? So at the time I kept talking to him about like, dude, I want to do production. Like out of all of our events, the most expensive thing that we're paying out of pocket for is production. And I was like, I know that world. Like I can just do it. Not great. Believe me, I'm learning every day. We make a lot of mistakes still on a daily basis. But I was like, I can do that. And Reed's like, no, man, low hanging fruit. Like let's just book more events. And I'm like, that doesn't. I'm a single parent. You know, I got things to do. And plus, I love that world. And so how I came to be with Punchline was during this transition, something kept drawing me to take a walk. And I was still debating doing Punchline, and I had a backup plan. So in like June, I had made a deal with another club member to go in and do account management for him and a good base salary, like make a good living, like one that I wouldn't have to worry about stuff, right? Like not wealthy, but certainly very comfortable, with potential to grow. Great opportunity. And, but I kept getting urged to go for this walk, and I went on this walk, and I was praying while I was walking, like with my hands out. And I was like, God, like I never really asked you for a sign, even during the breakup, which is when I really wanted to beg him for things, right? Like, why? I was like, if I'm supposed to start and do this production company, like, please give me a sign. And like instantaneously, how are we doing battery?
Oh, we're good. I'm just checking.
We're going to work on this battery thing.
Yes,
for you
we'll
guys.
just figure that out.
I got a little insider info from my brilliant partner, Sam. And I thought somebody threw something in my head, and I looked up, and a red-winged blackbird had flown down and pecked me dead in the center of my head.
No way.
Like almost instantaneously after I'm asking for a sign. Like, no joke.
Mm-hmm.
scientifically, I'm too close to a nest, probably. Right.
Right.
Sure.
Not the first time this bird's probably attacked somebody. Coincidentally,
Yeah.
it was a sign from God for
Right.
me. And so I immediately like called Reed or text them or whatever. I'm like, dude, birds peck me in the head when I'm asking for this. And like, my connection. I love nature. And so that was the thing. And then like a little while longer, we're talking about mentors. So later in my life, I have a mentor that I still have. And we have lunch at least once a month together. Fantastic dude. Amazing guy, Pat Queenson. He's very paternal, advice, just a good friend and whatever, and just a good dude. And so I'm telling him this story, and we're at lunch, and like, he's like, yeah, maybe we should do that. Because, for 30 years, I've had this in my pocket, and I carry it around everywhere I go, and it gives me a lot of peace to put this in my pocket when I put my wallet, my keys, and everything else in. And I want you to have this. And he puts his hand on the table, and he lifts it up. It's this little wooden cross. And so I still keep every day. I put this in my pocket. This is always with me at all times. And it's worn down probably from him rubbing it, but I rub it sometimes too. Like I'm thinking about something or whatever. So I carry this around, and all these things were kind of adding up over 2 weeks where I'm like, dude, it's the final piece. Like, what's going to push me over the edge to start this production company? And initially I was like, I want to do a show because I'm so heartbroken right now. Like, it's hard for me to get up in the morning time. And this is where I start my daily routine. All this starts coming into place in one kind of foul swoop, because this is like June of this year, right? And so the realization of how to do things daily routine wise came from one of my neighbors. My son and her son had gotten into something, and she like followed him into the house. And I was so embarrassed when she walked into my house unannounced, which I was also upset about because it was cluttered in there, right? Like, it wasn't filthy. Like, I don't have like dirty dishes and stuff, but there's Nerf darts and like Legos on the coffee table, and looks like two
like my house
12-year-olds.
upstairs.
Yeah. Yeah, but except a 9-year-old and a 40-year-old looks like two 12-year-olds live there. And so they're like, I was like, man. So I got embarrassed. So I started cleaning my house a little bit. And the next day I was like, I'm going to clean my house at the same time. So like day 7, my house is pretty clean to the point where I'm wiping down baseboards that had clearly never been wiped down, at least since I lived there. And then I'm like, oh, I have a little more time. So I started adding things to my routine. That's where that came from. The idea behind that is that once my house was clean, that's why I started adding stuff to my other routine. Is because I had a feeling of comfort when I came home. I was comfortable in my own space, and I was no longer embarrassed to invite people into my space. And it was peaceful. It was calm. And so I thought, man, if I could clean out a little bit of my brain every day, a little bit of my heart every day, a little bit of my emotional awareness every day, then my mind, my body, my spirit, my emotions are going to provide a clean, safe space for me that I'll be comfortable in, and a place for me to invite others into, where I can give my son a safe space that's total body, mind, and spirit, where I can give a partner a safe space to live in, provide for them a safety and sturdy consistency, right? Yeah. I can provide you a safe place. So that's where that came from. So the final push on doing the production company was I called 2 of my buddies that were going through some stuff. JT, good dude, real good dude. JT Thomas, he had a kidney transplant 7 or 8 years ago now. So I'm like, man, you're on your deathbed. What kept you going? He talked to me about it. He talked about it on my first episode of Mental. My other buddy was going through a divorce. Like, I was getting off of it. And the hardest thing that's ever happened to you is the hardest thing that's ever happened to you. So everything's relative. You're allowed to feel that, and you should feel that. So for me, that was the hardest thing I experienced relationship-wise. But my good friend is going through a divorce with 3 small kids, a woman he's been married to for 10 years. And he's still getting up and doing his job every day. And I'm like, damn, if he can do it, I should be able to do it, right? So I had those 2 dudes simultaneously on my show, the very first episode. And it was really just to like talk to, like, how do you keep going, man? How do you keep going? And figuring this stuff out. And through that episode alone, I was like, yeah, this is it. And I was like, what's really holding me back? The 2 primary things were holding back, which is kind of counterintuitive. One was letting go of the need for affirmation from other people. That was something I needed a lot of because of my abandonment issues, and I hadn't healed yet. So as I started to heal through therapy and self-work, I let that go. And so it might sound like an oxymoron to say, once I didn't care about anybody's opinion anymore, I jumped into the spotlight. Mm. But in actuality, the reason I'm comfortable doing the shows and stuff I am now is because I don't care. And I don't care because I'm indifferent about people's feelings. I have an understanding that
It's not going to affect your feelings and your
Right.
emotions. Yeah.
like Jay-Z said, what you eat don't make me shit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So like when I think back on it, my success and failures in life have all been directly affected by me, not someone telling me I can't do it or I can do it. So that was the big thing. And then the second thing was don't have a backup plan. Because a backup plan is a safe place for me to fail.
Mm.
So I called the dude that offered me the position because I knew mine was going away. And I was going to start there in September. And I was like, hey, I can't take that opportunity. He's like, why? What are you going to do instead? I'm like, I'm going to build this company. He's like, what? Like, you have a kid, you know? I'm like, yeah, which means I have to succeed. And so after that show, I did a secondary show next week. And that guest on my show was Kiri Anderson. And she's like going through a lot of stuff, right? She had lost her husband about a year ago now, give or take, of pancreatic cancer. She had a story to tell. And I was like, you should do your own show, women empowerment. Give some hope to other people out there. She's like, how would I do that? Like, what would it look like? Talked about it. And she started doing it. This is June now. So I have 2 shows and nowhere to go. And I can't fail. Reed and I are doing Punchline. Take it to a podcast format. And Cam's like, what are you guys doing? Like, Losey doing this stuff? Like, I want to do something.
So
let's
was
go.
he doing a podcast yet or no?
Yeah, he's been doing it
Yeah,
for
I was gonna
years.
say, he's been doing his for a
He has
while,
Cam
I
and Strick,
thought.
fantastic show.
Yeah.
Like, if you're a hockey fan, you're not watching that show, you're missing out. Those
That's
dudes
great.
are amazing. Strickland's actually Andy Strickland's a Parkway North dude. Real good dude.
Yeah.
Same high school. And he, back when I was at KFNS, he was at KFNS.
Okay.
So he was doing his sports stuff back then. He knows about sports, not unlike me. Like, he actually knows things. so they have an awesome show together. And then just start kind of like on his show, when he had that radio show, the radio station then all of a sudden closes down. KFNS does. And so I'm like, well, shoot, let's get their talent. And so my producer at the time, Joe, was already producing Charlie Tuna's show. So we swooped Charlie Tuna over. There's a big name. And then on Cam's morning drive show, Jim Hayes was on there. So Hayes is like, well, I want to do something. Come on, let's go. Like, so now Hayes has got a show going. So really, it's about surrounding what I said. When you're walking your purpose, you're surrounded by people that want to see you succeed and want to be successful and want to jump on board with you because you're walking a true purpose. Just being consistent. It's comforting to people. And I'd like to think that I've tried to make, and believe me, it's a daily struggle. There's never, if you're resting on your laurels, you're losing out. But I'm going with the flow, right? So the analogy I like to think of my brain is that I've got to do the work. I've got to row my canoe, and I can hang out on the left bank, the right bank. I can stay in the middle. Sometimes I got to stop off and camp. But I'm never going against the current. I'm never worried about where the river ends. Because in life, the end of the river, like my buddy Enzo put it this morning, is a waterfall. It's death. You're never going to get to the end of it. You got to put in the work every day. You can't fight the current. You just got to let it flow. The right stuff comes and it's meant to be. So I learned when to let go, when to push hard, what to accept from the universe. And that overall mindset, habits, daily living, has helped take Punchline to where we're going into 2025 with 20 shows.
Dude, incredible.
Those 6 months. July 23rd is when I created the LLC of Punchline Productions.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I know we talked about it briefly before, and some things you want to talk about, don't talk. But where do you see Punchline going? What are your hopes for?
Punchline will be, and I speak this in a manifestation way, will be the premier media network for this region to begin with, and then maybe beyond. Nobody's really doing a one-stop shop, and how we're putting that together is not really trade secret, but like whatever. But like right now already, you can go get health and wellness, you can get sports, you can get comedy, you can get all these things. And so this morning I had an amazing meeting with a dude who I think very, very highly of. He has a great energy about him, which is another word I wouldn't have used 2 years ago. I'm like, what a stupid thing to say about somebody. He has a great energy about him. He's a good dude. Enzo is going to co-host with me and eventually take over this thing where Sit Down with Stand-Ups used to be a segment on my radio show. And he's the primary host at Funny Bone Westport.
Okay.
So we're going to start filming open mic nights and comedy Then we're going to sit down with those stand-ups, 2 or 3 of them a night, and interview them afterwards.
We should
Cool.
connect
Why'd you
them.
get into it? Who are you? Because everybody wants to know why you're funny, but no one wants to know how are you? Who are you?
Yeah.
Right.
We should.
Yeah,
Cook.
we had a buddy of mine on from Chris Oliver.
Yeah.
You know Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know him,
Okay.
but I know the name. Yeah.
Yeah, I went to high school with him. We had him on a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Funny guy.
He put on a was it 5 or 6 people show at the
Yeah,
Funny Bone.
Yeah, we went to it before. We had him on. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Good dude.
Yeah, definitely. Because we're going to try some stuff out. So it's not just gonna be open mic night, which is the amateurs, but it's or not even amateurs.
Aren't you hosting a comedy show up at the club?
Yeah, January
cool.
25th. It's a charity thing. So whenever I do it now is typically for charity.
Mhm.
I did one last September. I did one for the Witches Walk in Pacific. And January 25th is for Dog Nation. So the proceeds go to helping hockey families that are in need, whatever the thing is. And I think I won't speak too much on it because we don't know all the details about where this money is going. But there was a recent loss in the hockey community
Mm-hmm.
here locally. That is probably at some capacity. That's where that's going to go.
Good.
Right. Without saying too much before we release stuff. But January 25th at Adventure Unknown.
Awesome.
So I'll be emceeing and doing some stand up there, and you guys can come laugh at the people that I'm introducing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how long have
I'll
you
be
been doing stand up? When did you start?
Really, honestly, man, being a talk show host and a stand up comic is something that I've done and wanted to do since I was a kid, little kid. My 6th grade teacher used to give me, like if I was good all week, she would let me do a 4-minute set, which strangely enough is how long you get as a open mic night.
Yeah.
It's 4 minutes. So
You don't
if I
realize
was,
how long 4 minutes is until you're standing up there, huh?
it's a long time.
Yeah.
Well, until you get used to it, and then
Yeah.
it's like too quick.
Yeah.
Because then you'll be like mid joke.
That light, they're giving you the light.
Yeah. And I'm like, I guess we'll never know why I crossed the road. See you, good night. And so but she used to give me a 4-minute set at the end of the week. So on Fridays I would do stand up for my class in 6th grade
That's
so
awesome.
cool.
at Jury Elementary out in North County. And I mean, it was stupid stuff. Like it was very like Jim Carrey was like my idol back then. Like I used to have a Pet Detective ID card, and I was big on impressions.
Yeah.
And I used to try and do impressions all the time. So it'd be me doing like Adam Sandler's version of whatever, or like Christopher Walken singing a song, or something, right? And just be like, I don't know, like, or very like observational humor. Like, man, have you ever got done brushing your teeth in the morning and then like taking a big swig of milk only to find out it's orange juice? That's the worst, right? like all these 6th graders, just because I was up there, would be like, yeah, oh my gosh, yeah, it's terrible.
It's killing.
Like, that's so relatable, dude.
Yeah. Been there.
Yeah. And then I got heavier into it when I was in my like late teens. So like 18, 19, doing some stuff. Early 20s, I really started banging it out, doing 2 and 3 nights a week for a while.
Okay.
And I remember Jeremy Essick, actually, I think was the first dude to give me a piece of advice my very first night. And that's on YouTube somewhere. It was at Bombshell. Like my first like big thing that I created was this open mic night at Bombshell Bar and Grill. It's no longer there on Main Street. And I get off my set, and Jeremy's sitting at the bar. I'm like, hey, do you have any advice for me, like as a comic? And he's like, you're great at captivating the audience. Like people want to listen to you. Now you just got to come up with jokes. I'm like, oh yeah,
Oh yeah, it's pretty important.
good idea.
Yeah.
It's basically up there telling a story with like 2 things that people laughed at.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I got into it. And I always wanted to be the talk show host part came from, and why I love what I do now is my grandfather used to let me stay up late sometimes and watch Johnny Carson with him. And he's somebody I've always looked up to. He could listen to anyone, talk to anyone the same way, whether you're the president of the United States or server at a restaurant. Just you had the same respect from him. And he would draw things out of people. And when he would watch Johnny Carson, he would laugh, and he was a very stoic dude. So to see him laugh was like,
Something special.
I want to be that guy. I want to be the guy that makes my grandpa laugh. And it was just Johnny talking about that was weird, wild stuff. Did not know that.
Yeah.
And just having being a talk show host.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where those 2 things came from. That's where that passion came from. And that's why I think that I had such a desire that I didn't know to start Punchline. And that's why I'm sure it'll be successful, because I've truly began walking my purpose at this point.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, before we let you go, anything else you want to talk about or plug before we get out of here?
If you haven't seen Santa Claus yet, speaking of the club, tomorrow night at the club, we are doing a charitable
First responders.
Yep. Specifically Officer Brown.
Yeah.
We're going to raise some money and toys for his children. And then another officer that went down. So Santa Claus will be at the club. There'll be snacks and cookies and crafts and drinks. And it's $20 a ticket. It starts at 6 p.m. at 1505 Finn Park Drive. Santa Claus will be there. The real Santa Claus. And it'll be good. Well, you know what? By the time this is out,
I
though.
was gonna say, this is probably come out next week.
Oh,
Or, actually,
this will be out. Yeah, this will be out next Tuesday.
yeah.
So sorry you missed that.
Sorry, you missed
sorry,
Santa Claus.
yeah, missed Santa Claus.
Hopefully, he came somewhere else for
January
you.
25th is probably the next big thing.
Okay.
Dog Nation.
Sweet.
And I'll send you guys a flyer to put onto there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's 6 to 10. And the comics that night are Enzo, Scott James, who's hilarious, Jack Wright, I think, and myself.
Sweet.
Okay. Awesome.
I'd love to go.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah.
I'm up there all the time.
Right
But we always end it with one last thing. Call it the tombstone game. Okay. Here lies Corey. What's it say on your tombstone?
My comedic brain went immediately to the ingredients. But if I'm being honest, because it used to be television commercials before your time.
Okay.
What do you want on your tombstone? You're like pepperoni and sausage.
I remember
Tombstone
those.
pizzas.
I remember those.
I would say that someone who understood the importance of knowing he doesn't know everything.
Perfect. That's
Love it.
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey, Corey, thank you so much for coming on. It was an absolute pleasure. Love getting to know you. And
thank you guys.
We'll definitely talk again here soon. But
Yeah, sure.
Thank you guys so much for tuning into the show. If you haven't already, please click that subscribe button for us. We're a newer podcast. We're still trying to grow. So another great thing, if you really want to help us out, share the show with a friend, someone who you think would enjoy it as well. That's the nicest thing you can do for us. So comment below what you guys thought, hit that like button, and we'll see you next time.